Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, it's wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me. To make my chandelier, I've taken the connection off the top of the light, which is what I'm going to be using, and I've got some really thick 2.5 millimeter copper wire, which I've turned into a circle. Now, the size of the circle all depends on how you're going to do it. I want to make it so that I can still use this globe that I use, that I can still get my hand through to actually place the globe into the socket. So the diameter is probably 10 centimeters for this particular piece, and then I'm just going to cut it and join it. I've cut my wire, and now I'm going to be using this T8000, and I'm just going to be gluing that small point over there, and then I'm going to join it together by using some 0.9 millimeter galvanized tie wire, and I'm just going to attach it on either side. It's a very nice glue to work with because it's got a very fine tip like that, and then we just close it up like that. I'm starting to wire it so that that's where the center point is. So I'm putting my wire across the side there and then just holding it down with my pliers, and then I'm going to start twisting it from this side. So it's got a long leg for me to go over. So I've tied it like that, and now the end pieces I'm just going to be going back over the center piece just to reinforce that opening. So just closing that in like that. The small tiny piece that's left over, I'm just taking a little pair of pliers and I'm lifting that up, and then I'm just rolling it over just like that so that it can go underneath the other wire so it's not sticking out. And then I'm just going to squash that down. So it's nice and flat. So the other ring that I'm going to be using is just a ring that I bought from the craft store, and this one is a 20 centimeter diameter ring. So I've got my 3 little circles like that, and now we can start working with the beads. I've got a packet of these little crystal shaped beads. Which look like that. They're actually quite small ones, these ones. But I think it'll make quite a nice chandelier. I've cut 3 pieces of the 9mm wire, and I've just put a small loop on top of them like that because I'm going to be attaching them to the screws on this little connection that goes into the light fitting. I'm using a 2-liter soft drink bottle just to support it. So I've attached my wire to the screw, and then I've gone down about 20 centimeters and just made a loop on my wire so that it can hold it, so that I can see how to put the beads on. And I'm going to attach that, and then I'm going to twist it around the loop. And then connect the bottom loop to that, and doing that on all 3 of them. The bottom wire I'm measuring from the loop to the end here, and I'm making them 10 centimeters, which is what I'm going to be tying around the bottom loop. I've got my circle all wired up like that, so that's the bottom circle, and then the middle circle, and then it goes to the top. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking some of my little beads that I've got, and I'm cutting to start off with 15 rows of 29 beads each, because the little gap between the screws at the top here, I'm placing the 5 in between each of the screws around the top piece. To cut the beads, I'm just counted 1 row, and now I'm just lying them next to it and then just cutting at the same distance. So I'm just doing the 15 rows like that. I've got all my beads cut, and now I'm going to take some hot glue and ST8000, start gluing them on. When you're gluing your beads on, try and glue onto the metal or whatever you're using, in preference to the beads, because the beads are all plastic. So I'm just gluing these ones on, and try and make sure that the string inside the bead is lying straight, so that you've got a nice clean straight line to them. And then just glue all of them on. So I've glued one lot on, and they actually took 6 beads between the centers, so I'm just going to cut an extra 3 rows of beads to do the next sides as well. I've got all the beads glued on now, and where I've got the screw, and I've removed all the wires now, so I'm going to be taking the wire off the screw, and then I'm going to be tightening the screws down and then gluing the bead onto the screw. I've screwed the screws in really tight, so now I can put 1 more row to cover the screws. I'm going to do the 3 screws like that. I've got all my beads glued on around the top, and now I'm going to try and space them evenly along the center loop, and I'm gluing them in between the 18th and 19th beads. So on the piece of thread is where I'm gluing them. And then just glue all the beads all the way around. I've got my chandelier balanced on a wine bottle, and I'm starting by doing where the screw is. So that's the screw. I'm gluing that one down first, and then the next screw I'm gluing that one down. So I know I've got 6 pieces in between, and I'm lining them up evenly. So start gluing all these ones down. I've turned my piece upside down so that I can glue the base ones on. So I'm just starting with the screw ones, and I'm gluing these ones flat like that. And now I've got 18 more rows of beads, and each of them have got 28 beads on them, and I'm going to be sticking these ones in the middle of these ones, so like that. So it's 1 bead down from the top, it's a little bit difficult to see with all the beads on, but it's just in between the top ones like that. I've glued all the beads on the top, and now what we're going to be doing is gluing them in between the spaces of the other ones. So with this particular one, the other one we were gluing at 18 and 19, this one is 16 and 17, or you can just glue them as they hang, so just like that. One small problem that I've encountered is, I don't know whether you can see this, but there's such a tiny difference in the distance between the string on some of them, and I don't know whether it's from the start or the end, but it's making the strands, one of them sticks out quite far like that, whereas all the other ones are lying nice and flat. So I'm going to have to pull the ones that are sticking out like that, this particular one here, I'm going to have to loosen that one and just add some beads at the end, because all of them are exactly the same length, but they're all hanging at different lengths because of that small distance that is lacking between the beads with that little bit of string. So I'd suggest when you cut them, you have to measure them instead of cutting by bead size. The light connection that comes with the light that screws onto the electrics, I'm going to be covering with some bling wrap as well. I've just got a rope which I'm just going to wrap around the connection to cover it. Because the little lampshade goes from big to small, what I've done is I've cut my strip of bling wrap, and on the first row I've cut 4 pieces off. So in total there's 7 rows that I'm actually using. So the first row I'm cutting 4 pieces off, and the second row I'm cutting just 3 pieces off, so that it curves around like that, so that when it wraps around here it joins quite nicely. I'm just using hot glue to do this, so I've glued the top part on, and as you can see there's a big gap there, but when you pull it tight because the bottom is so small, the whole gap closes, so it makes it nice. As you can see, it finishes it off quite nicely, so all the way around it's all closed off. I'm going to be taking some more of the bling, and I'm going to be putting it right at the top, just around like that, and I'm going to be using 4 rows to do that. I actually changed my mind, I'm going with 5 rows instead, because it covers it just that little bit nicer than the 4. I'm taking a very thin piece of cardboard which I just got from a chocolate wrapper, and I'm drawing a line just a little bit shorter than the bling. I'm going to cut that out so that I can wrap it around the top here, because it's tapers and I want it straight at the top. And then we're going to just glue the rhinestones or bling wrap to that. So I'm just putting a little bit of glue there and then closing it in. So that can go on the top like that. So for this one I'm not actually going to be gluing it on, because that goes right up to the ceiling, so I don't want to have it interfering with the top light fitting, so I need it to be able to move just a little bit when I screw it on. I bought some of these Christmas decorations, which is a beautiful snowflake with an icicle at the end and some beads. They dangle quite nicely like that, but I'm going to be dismantling them, and I'm just taking to use the snowflakes. So I'm just going to take these little rings off on both sides, and then I'm going to be gluing them all the way around like that. I've got all my snowflakes glued on, and now what I'm doing is I'm taking some of these self-adhesive rhinestones, but I'm going to be gluing them on, and I'm just going to be gluing one in the center of each of the snowflakes like that. On the bottom of the snowflake there's a little icicle like that, and the icicle is only 5 centimeters long, and what I've done is I've bought some more icicles. These ones are 13 centimeters long, so I'm going to be placing a short long all the way around the base of the light just there. These icicles don't come with a loop on it, so what I'm doing is I'm taking the loops that come with the snowflake, and I'm just removing those ones, and I'm going to place it onto these icicles. So that I don't destroy the glue at the bottom of the lamp, I'm using a 0.7mm tie wire, and all I'm doing is I'm cutting 2 centimeter piece, and I'm using one of them as a template, and then I'm just going to cut all of them exactly the same. And now I'm taking a small round nose pliers, and all you do is put it right at the end so that you can't feel any wire sticking at the top, and then just rotate it. When you can't go any further, just move it and rotate so you get a tiny little hook on the top like that. And then I'm doing the exact same thing on the other side, but in the reverse. So instead of coming up, I'm going to be going under. So just turn it, hold it right at the tip, and then just rotate. So you get a wee little piece like that, looks like that. And now I'm just going to bend, put my pliers in, and then I'm going to bend it just a little bit more so that it's got a slightly bigger loop, so that they will all land up the same, looking like that. So this piece will go onto the rim and the dangle will hang on the small piece. And I'm going to make 21 pieces like that. Once you've got all your little hooks made, then just attach them to the little rings, and then we're going to attach these to the bottom ring on light shade. I've got these small little oval mirrors which are about 3 centimeters long, and all I'm going to be doing is placing them in between to cover the wire. So I'm just going to be gluing them in like that. I've got all the mirrors in place, and now I'm going to be trying to cover the bottom row there, and I'm going to be taking 2 rows of bling wrap and I'm going to glue it on to that copper wire. So just like that. I'm going to be using the chains that came with those particular decorations, so it's just one of the crystals that I'm going to be using. It's pretty much the same as the big chandelier crystal holders, but as you can see, there's quite a difference in the size of the bead when you have a look at it. So I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to be just gluing it onto the bottom of these little beads by using the ring, so like that. To glue the bead onto the bottom, on the ring you'll see there's one part that's got a double, and that's where I put the glue. So you put the glue on and make sure that you wet your fingers now. So wetting the fingers, and then you just put the bead on and then squish it on. But you must make sure that your fingers are wet, and then it just sticks like that. I've got everything glued on now. So we've got the mirrors up there and coming down. We've got all the bling and then the little dangles hanging on there. Now we just have to hang it up and switch it on. So there's now my new chandelier hanging up, and with the light on. Extremely happy how that turned out. It's absolutely beautiful. If you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Really appreciate it if you would subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.